last week on one of the programs, Tony mentioned that the FBI had literally published and then later retracted a memo urging FBI agents to investigate alleged ties to radical traditional Catholics and what ties they might have to racially motivated violent extremists. Folks, this is unbelievable. If you are a Catholic, in other words, the FBI may be coming to your church to look for you. Now, the source behind all of this was the Southern Poverty Law Center, or the Southern Impoverished Law Center, as they're known here at FRC. But since the president of our country attends a Roman Catholic church and identifies as a Catholic despite his support for abortion and same-sex marriage, you would think that the White House would comment on his church being identified as a potential hate group of himself, the president, potentially having ties to a hate group. You would think the White House would say something about this, but so far they have declined all requests to speak on this issue or address it at all or to disavow the SPLC. Well, joining me now to discuss this and more is Tyler O'Neill. He's the managing editor of the Daily Signal and also author of the book, Making Hate Pay, The Corruption of the Southern Poverty Law Center. So, Tyler, thank you so much for joining us this evening on Washington Watch.
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks, Jim.
Well, listen, before we get started, I'm just amazed at your book. It could not be more spot on. Let's talk about that. How did the FBI even utilize the Southern Poverty Law Center as a source?
Yeah, that is the million-dollar question. And the real issue we're seeing here is that the FBI decided that the Southern Poverty Law Center was a reliable source. This went in contradiction to many years of the FBI's training, where they said specifically that the Southern Poverty Law Center is not considered a reliable source. There were, I spoke with sources at former, FBI whistleblowers who said that they had multiple trainings where they explicitly said the SPLC is not to be trusted. And one of the many reasons why was the terrorist attack that was perpetrated against the Family Research Council there in Washington, D.C.
Absolutely. Well, let's go straight to the memo itself. What did it say, and when was it retracted?
Yeah, so the memo encouraged FBI agents to develop sources even in places of worship, as they said, suggesting that agents might actually infiltrate Catholic churches to root out extremists. But of course, it didn't just suggest that. It also gave a list of SPLC hate groups where these agents should begin their investigations. And of course, that list is particularly noteworthy. I mean, these are what they call radical traditionalist Catholic hate groups, but they have a large array of mainstream conservative and Christian organizations that they brand hate groups, including the Family Research Council. They call them anti-LGBT hate groups. And specifically, when it comes to the Catholic Church, they put the Ruth Institute on the list. And one of the reasons why they call the Ruth Institute a hate group is because the organization's founder, Jennifer Roback Morse, who happens to be a Roman Catholic, decided that she would quote the Catechism of the Catholic Church in saying that homosexual activity is intrinsically disordered. This isn't just a statement she came up with out of the blue. This is a direct quote from the Roman Catholic Church. And yet the SPLC repeatedly on its webpage, calling the Ruth Institute a hate group, quotes this quote as if it were the damning evidence that Jennifer Roback Morse's institution is a hate group, which really raises the question, and I've asked the SPLC many times about this, do you consider the Catholic Church as a whole to be a hate group? Because this document, the Catechism, is the document that binds 1 billion Catholics across the world. Not every Catholic always agrees with it, but it's specifically what the Catholic Church believes.
Unbelievable. Tyler, we've only got a couple of minutes here. Did you think anyone at the FBI ever even considered the fact that the president belongs to the group that they are targeting?
Yeah, no, I don't think they did. Mainly because, again, the FBI decided to cite this on radical traditionalist Catholic groups, which are separate from the overall Catholic Church. But they don't seem to realize that by the logic of the Southern Poverty Law Center, this does apply to the entire Catholic Church, and by extension to its members, of whom Joe Biden is one. And it's particularly shocking to me that Biden seems not to care about this story. He hasn't commented on it publicly, and he hasn't responded to repeated requests for comment, which really should raise alarm bells, because the SPLC has these organizations on its list because they believe Catholic doctrine on LGBT issues. And those issues are the specific place where Biden extremely separates himself from what his church actually holds. And, he's been advocating consistently for years the furthest reaches of LGBT activism. And yet he's not.
Tyler, we're going to have to leave it there. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us and keeping us abreast on this important issue. Appreciate you coming on Washington Watch.